Welcome to Day 2 of the Sovereignty Protocol. Today, we pull back the curtain on the silent compounding drain that is systematically gutting your potential, bankrupting your future, and keeping you trapped in a perpetual state of quiet desperation. Yesterday, we exposed the biological heist happening inside your nervous system and showed you how hyperstimulation hijacks your baseline dopamine chemistry. Today, we move from the biological architecture to the operational ledger, where we must calculate the full terrifying price tag of your compulsions. The silent tax on sovereignty. When the average unexamined mind considers the impact of an addiction or a compulsive habit, they engage in incredibly weak, superficial accounting. They look at their bank balance and calculate the direct, linear costs. They tally up the money spent on digital subscriptions, late-night food deliveries, alcohol, vape cartridges, or impulse purchases, and if that number doesn't immediately bankrupt them, they reassure themselves that their bad habit is harmless, manageable, or just a minor guilty pleasure. But if you believe that financial capital is the primary price you pay for your vices, you are operating under a catastrophic delusion. Money is a renewable resource. You can lose a fortune tomorrow and rebuild it with high-leverage execution. But the silent tax does not take your pocket change. It takes your irreplaceable time, your cognitive bandwidth, your psychological integrity, and your absolute authority as the CEO of your own destiny. Let us break down the exact invoices that your vices are quietly sending to your future self every single day. The first invoice is the tax of attention residue and cognitive friction. In the modern economy, your absolute competitive advantage, the sole asset that separates high-tier operators from replaceable commodities, is your ability to sit in unbroken, deep focus and solve complex, high-friction problems. But when you operate with an unmanaged addiction, your working memory is constantly fragmented. Cognitive scientists have proven that when you interrupt a high-leverage task to check a notification, scroll through a feed, or seek a quick dopamine fix, your brain does not instantly bounce back to full processing capacity when you return to the task. A massive portion of your focus remains glued to the distraction you just left. This residue acts like a background virus on your operating system, consuming precious RAM, slowing down your analytical speed, and introducing errors into your execution. You might sit at your desk for 8 hours, but because you conceded to microscopic distractions every 20 minutes, you only delivered 2 hours of actual high-density output. The rest was burned paying the attention tax. You are working twice as hard to achieve a fraction of the results, and then wondering why you feel perpetually exhausted and behind schedule. The second and far more lethal invoice is the tax of subconscious self-betrayal. The foundation of true, unbreakable self-confidence is not positive affirmations, artificial hype, or looking at yourself in the mirror and spouting motivational platitudes. Genuine confidence is simply the logical result of an unbroken track record of keeping the promises you make to yourself. When you state that you are going to wake up at 5 in the morning and you actually do it, you deposit credit on your internal ledger. When you commit to a deep work block, a brutal workout, or a strict financial diet, and you execute without negotiation, your mind registers that you are an elite operator whose word is absolute law. But every single time you yield to a craving, every time you make a conscious decision to indulge in a vice you explicitly promised yourself you would abandon, you commit a violent act of treason against your own identity. Each concession is a micro-betrayal recorded on the hard drive of your subconscious mind. Over months and years of these continuous quiet surrenders, you build a massive internal case study proving that you are unreliable, weak, and incapable of self-governance. This is why so many talented, high-potential individuals suffer from severe imposter syndrome and underlying anxiety. It is not an accident. It is the natural psychological interest on years of broken promises. You cannot step into a high-stakes negotiation, build an ambitious business, or lead others with conviction when deep down in your nervous system you know you cannot even control your own hands when a cheap distraction presents itself. Your addiction turns you into an imposter in your own skin, forcing you to navigate life with an internal voice that constantly whispers that you are a fraud. The third invoice is the tax of stagnant opportunity cost. Time is an absolute, non-negotiable continuum. Every single hour you spend pacifying your stress with mindless entertainment, numbing your anxieties with substances, or hunting for artificial validation on digital platforms is an hour that has been permanently deleted from the ledger of your life. But the true tragedy is not just the lost hour. It is what that hour could have compounded into if it had been invested with strategic precision. What if the hundreds of hours you sacrificed to your primary vice over the last year had been aggressively funneled into mastering a high-income skill, conducting a ruthless audit of your personal finances, building a scalable business architecture, or sculpting a world-class physical physique? The mathematical difference between where you are today and where you could have been is the exact measure of the silent tax. You are actively subsidizing your current comfort by liquidating your future empire. You are taking the raw golden assets of your youth, your vitality, and your ambition, and throwing them into a furnace just to stay warm for 15 minutes. The most insidious aspect of this silent tax is that it is engineered to be invisible in the short term. An addiction rarely destroys your life in a single catastrophic explosion. It destroys it through micro-attrition. It is the steady, daily erosion of your standards. It is the subtle shift from demanding absolute excellence from yourself to accepting baseline adequacy and eventually settling for comfortable mediocrity. It is looking at your life 5 years down the road and realizing you are standing in the exact same place, dealing with the exact same financial stress, and fighting the exact same internal battles, while watching operators who protected their focus build massive, untouchable fortunes. Today, on day 2 of the Sovereignty Protocol, we cease all payments to this predatory system. You must become a cold-blooded, clinical auditor of your own life architecture. You must sit down with pen and paper, strip away every comfortable lie and rationalization, and calculate the true cost of your concessions. Look at your primary vice and ask yourself, what has this actually cost me in lost momentum? What has it cost me in mental clarity? What has it cost me in self-trust, self-respect, and strategic progress? Look directly at the raw, uncomfortable tally of your losses, not to drown in shame or self-pity, but to kindle a furious, righteous outrage against the habits that have been holding you hostage. Shame is a passive, useless emotion that feeds addiction. Outrage is an active, combustible fuel that drives liberation. Decide right now that you are done paying for your own pacification. Refuse to give away another ounce of your focus, another hour of your time, or another piece of your authority to a cheap, low-tier vice that gives you nothing in return but regret. Reclaim your internal ledger, enforce your standards with lethal precision, and own your path.